We are here today. We are here to discuss lessons learned from mission critical projects and how these lessons can enhance your safety program. This is in conjunction with HammerTech. Why this topic matters? Working on critical projects such as data centers teaches us critical lessons, and these lessons are not limited to mission critical environments. They can be applied to all commercial projects. What we hope you'll learn from today we'll learn from HammerTech and Mercury on topics helping you to understand your robust safety processes involved in mission critical projects. Learn safety protocols on how to handle these processes and how to apply to commercial projects. Real-world examples on safety tech can be leveraged to overcome extreme challenges in mission critical environments. Just housekeeping before I introduce you to Chris, if we can leave the Q&A until the end. And now I'm going to just hand you over to Chris Gitch from HammerTech.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. As Ronan mentioned, we're gonna talk about mission critical projects and some new strategies for managing safety in those high demand environments. So just a quick introduction, if I can get my screen to go for me here. As mentioned, Chris Gitch, safety technology consultant here with HammerTech. I'm based here in the States, but prior to my time at HammerTech, I spent about 5 years doing data centers, mostly in North America, but did quite a bit over in the EU and more specifically in Ireland as well. So I'm pleased to be joined by Nick O'Connor, the group QEHSS Director with Mercury Engineering. And so we'll get into our topic for today. But just a real brief introduction on HammerTech. So HammerTech is a safety software designed for construction, founded in Australia about 10 years ago. Since then, we've added 500 contractors to our portfolio, and we've been used on over 20,000 projects globally. You can see a few of our contractors there that are using HammerTech in UK and Ireland. One of those is, of course, Mercury. So quick agenda. We already hit on our introductions today. We're just going to go through a few topics, kind of dive into some stuff, get some real world examples from Mick specifically, and then also I'll share some as well from my experience prior to coming to HammerTech. So, and then I think we'll have a Q&A at the end. I think our moderators here, Ronan and Jennifer, can help us with those questions that come across. So we'll jump in and out of the slides as we move through. So our first topic is understanding or knowing the rigid safety requirements and the demands of mission critical projects. So Mick, if you don't mind sharing kind of what your experience has been, sort of even some history of how these rigid requirements kind of came about. I think that'd be helpful to get us started here.
Hi everybody. Thanks for the invite today. So for myself, with Mercury, been with Mercury about 10-11 years now since I came back, and prior to that I worked on the client side, design, PSCS, PSDP, CDM coordinator, principal designer, a lot of experience in that field. But my own journey, Chris, I'm answering your question here, trust me. My own journey started when I worked on sites a long time ago, and I was lucky enough to, in 1997, get a job in Intel with Mercury working on site. And basically, it was like night and day walking into Intel from real construction sites, we call them at the time, kind of commercial jobs, stuff like that, where people wouldn't have been wearing PPE or anything remotely like it, to getting to a place where from the first minute of the first day, you had to be up to speed with everything, PPE, harnesses, lanyards, tie-off. And whilst the equipment at the time was probably a little bit primitive for what it was needed, that developed over time. So I think the American multinationals were a huge driver of safety in Ireland, in Europe, and globally. I think a lot of it started with DuPont, is my understanding, and they did a lot of work on the behavioral side of things. But outside of that, they just set a standard that was pretty incredible. And to be fair, there's a lot of great construction management companies out there who would have driven it on behalf of those clients as well. So for me, it started there, and if anything, standards have gone up and up and up. So requirements have gone up. Whereas one time there was kind of a kind of safety thought process that it was only the big clients did it. Now everybody does it. Everybody does it for the right reason. So certainly from a mission critical point of view, like safety is non-negotiable. It's from the first minute right through the lifetime of the project, the commissioning and handover, and rightly so. Our people are our most valuable asset, and we want to get everyone home safe every day. But I talk about rigid, I think it's not rigid, mightn't even be the word. It's just expectations are definitely higher. There's more information now, there's more audits, there's more trending, there's more proactive conversations. Training is better, equipment is better. But I think there's a general understanding that people are entitled to come to work and go home safe. And that was always the case, and there was a lot of common sense in people getting themselves home safe many years ago. But now the systems are there, and you're trying to bring people with you for process and procedure compliance. And processes and procedures are brilliant, but you have to roll them out, embed them, make it happen, and make it happen consistently as you induct tens of thousands of people every year, and you're trying to make sure that from the first minute they walk on your projects that they're compliant. And that's not always easy with cultural challenges and things like that. But I suppose for the safety requirements and the demands are that everyone is safe from the first second. So we've seen ourselves on projects in Europe that we've people from various countries and cultures that wouldn't have known what a safety harness was or wouldn't have worn a hard hat before. And there's a huge amount of work and commitment by our teams to get them up to speed immediately. But there's a commitment by the personnel themselves to commit to our safety program. So one of the things we do there is we do online inductions, which are done before people start on our projects. And the beauty of that is that it's about 1.5 hours safety and then about 20 to 30 minutes on quality. But it sets our expectations before people start on our projects. So if someone doesn't complete the online induction, it's in 19 languages at the minute. If they don't complete the induction, they're probably not bought into coming with us on the journey, on the safety journey. And we see it as a big part of our safety process or our safety management system, the online inductions. Because once people come to site, they get a full induction anyway on the site. It's local, it's specific to the hazards, it's specific to what we're doing, what we're building, what we're trying to achieve, and it's person to person. But the online and the use of technology there is massive, because if someone does that online, they don't believe in it, they're not going to believe in it, well then it's better for them to see what we expect early and not come to our project, rather than you get people coming to our projects, and it's in Ireland and the UK too, for sure, and they think safety isn't all that, and they just don't commit, and they're never going to commit, and you've more challenges than you would like. So I suppose the safety requirements then as well, just to continue, everyone on the call is probably familiar with minimum performance requirements, and they're documents that are pulled together by all our clients. I suppose for ourselves, we've our own minimum performance requirements, which mirror the client minimum performance requirements. They're all pretty similar anyway. And for us, that goes out with our tenders to our contractors, goes out to the vendors, and it goes out to everybody. So again, before a company is qualified with Mercury, they're pre-qualified and they sign up to work to our minimum performance requirements. So that's powerful as well, in that no one can say, well, we're not doing this, or we're not going to that meeting, or we won't give you that report, or anything like that. It's all in the minimum performance requirements. And then you have all your standard safety stuff around the high risk activities. Basically, what you call it, the work at heights, electrical. So there's no ambiguity before someone comes to work for us. So there's a hell of a lot of good work gone into that over the years. And then really you're striving for consistency. But I think there is a big challenge bringing people from different backgrounds, cultures, training, and they have to hit the ground running immediately. There is no room for a slow burn or someone not complying, because it does put your projects at risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, yeah. Okay.
If for me, I kind of come from an owner's background as well. So Mick, I heard you mention a company in there that I actually I spent some time working for, DuPont, which isn't specifically in the mission critical space, but in that chemical industry. And I spent, prior to being in data centers, was in that chemical and oil and gas segment, and see a lot of similarities between those two industries. And I think what it really boils down to is just the level of hazard that's present, and the necessity to be, like you said, you can't afford for someone to come in and kind of have a slow burn or a learning curve, if you will. It's kind of, here's what we need to do, here's how we need to do it. And the reason we need to do it this way is because, if we get it wrong, we're going to kill people. And in the mission critical environment as well, there's the added, if we get it wrong and we take down equipment, there's a chance we're going to affect millions of people with how, one of the companies I used to work for was a large social media company. And, when we'd have issues, the whole world noticed it. So it's a kind of a, very high level expectations, and for good reason. Mick, I know you guys have like 14 high risk activities that you've identified. Do you mind touching on kind of some of the specific processes that you've put in place for maybe, one or two of those, and then how that kind of developed within the business?
Yeah, so the high risk activities are like the safety critical activities that tend to kill people or seriously injure people if they're not managed properly. So I think every company probably has their own version of that. So you have things like work at heights, confined spaces, lifting and rigging, excavations, things like that. So for us, we have an SOP for each high risk activity. So that's the first starting point. There's then training requirements within those SOPs for people doing specific tasks. Then when it comes to the practical side of it and the work being done on site, there's a RAMS completed for the task. There's an SPA completed for the task. There's an SPA, I suppose the RAMS and the SPA are reviewed. Big thing for us is basically permitting of these types of activities. And we put a hell of a lot of work into the RAMS, SPA, and the permitting. For us as well, since the start of 2024, on a request from some of our teams, we put together workflows for those critical tasks as well. So the workflows are a 7-step final reminder for supervision or managing the tasks, the people that are putting them to work. So sometimes the SOPs are a big document. The RAMS is a reasonable size document, I guess. The SPA is a brilliant document in that it's your last minute risk assessment. Permits are very good. If all those are followed, you're not going to have any issues. But there was a request just as a final reminder before the task starts to put in the hand of each supervisor the 7 basic steps to make sure they had covered all the bases before that high risk activity starts. So that has been a success because it helps to break down the language barriers and things like that. And communication is critical. Communication is probably the biggest challenge overall for all of health and safety. And I think it's really important that that's recognized. And any way you can bridge the communication gap, you're on a winner. Because if we're all sitting here today and we talk about a methodology, and then everyone leaves here today and tells someone else about it, and then that person you told tells someone else, by the time it gets to the third person, it's probably a different methodology. So communication is absolutely critical. But for us, the high risk activities are something we've been working on forever. And we've talked a lot since about 2017 about non-standard high-risk activities. So they're the ones that your standard RAMs, SPA and permit don't cover. Those kind of special cases. Might be more restricted areas, restricted rescue, overlapping contractors, So we actually have a non-standard HRA RAMs as well, which puts extra focus and highlights the kind of additional over and above controls you're putting in place. But for us as well, I suppose a big part of what we do is trying to be practical. And being practical is another really, really important thing. So what do? We do things like the task is walked with the crew by the supervisor. Then the RAMS is formed. The task is walked with the crew and the SPA is formed. Traditionally, long time ago, the apprentice might end up writing the SPA for the crew for the next day, but he may or may not have even been walked on the task. He might just have been good at spoken English, written English, like 20, 30 years ago. Thankfully, all that has moved on. It's really critically important that all the tasks are walked, pre-walked, all the hazards are discussed and agreed, and the paper is only as good as what's written on it. And for us, we talk about non-standard, we talk about deviations from the plan, high-risk unwanted conditions, restricted works not being assessed, getting over and above assessment, I think is a critical item. You have to identify where it's non-standard and spend more time planning that task. The behavioural training that we do is very helpful when it comes to trying to alleviate deviations from the plan, because we believe that with all the processes and procedures, we firmly believe that if the plan is followed, we'll have no accidents. So one of the languages or thought process we have is that 0 deviations equals 0 accidents. And that has been our experience as a company as well. So I think there's multiple layers to safety management system. Process and procedure is absolutely critical, but you have to communicate it properly. You have to audit it. You have to do training. You have to work really hard to make sure it's embedded and that you're getting consistency. What else do? We do a lot of work on visual standards. We tend to write our own training courses. We do a lot of work with City and Guilds to accredit them, because we want people to leave Mercury or stay with Mercury with training that is an industry standard training, and that they can bring that training with them if they move on, and if they stay with us, all the better, and they're trained to a really high standard. So there's a hell of a lot of work in your safety management system, but for me, process, procedure, critical, but it's all the work after that. There's no point having pages of paper on the desk or on your desktop and nobody knows about it. If you can't communicate from your SOPs and get an understandable, practical message to the people actually doing the work, then the work won't reflect what you believe that the teams are doing on site. So there's a hell of a lot to bridge that gap, and I think technology is critical to bridge that gap, because it's incredibly useful for consistency, multi-language, and things like that.
Yeah, that's excellent, and I know for Mercury that a lot of this has started. If I can get my slides to go forward here, I know a lot of what you're talking about has started in that mission critical segment, right? Kind of from, we discussed the owner's kind of drive for that, or the high expectations that are present and why they're present. And I know that Mercury, you guys have transitioned, and maybe that's not the right word to use, but have kind of adopted a lot of those practices in all of your operations, regardless of the types of projects. So Mick, maybe you can talk a little bit about what what that was like of transitioning from, hey, we learned this, like we adopted this process or this procedure on our mission critical projects, what was that transition like of taking that to your other projects? Like, how was that received? In areas where those kind of enhanced processes or procedures or enhanced expectations were previously not in place.
Well, I think for me that you can turn that question around very slightly, and what helps us get a commercial edge. You won't get your foot in the door unless you're performing to a high level from a safety perspective. And I think what's obvious to global clients who are very mature and they understand what safety is all about and why safety is, they understand that if safety isn't performing, or if you've poor safety on a project, it's very likely that you'll have poor quality and poor productivity and poor everything else. And that's a big item I've just spoken about there. So when clients see safety, performance, they see control. And they're correct, because safety is the foundation of everything good. You look at projects now, and many moons ago, I was doing civil engineering. There was a very small amount of people in the office on a construction project. Nowadays, there's a hell of a lot more people, and they're there really for planning, because the project's been built so quickly that the sequencing, the execution, deliveries, logistics, it's just a different ballgame. So construction has moved so far ahead, it's just incredible, and it's very reliant on technology. And for me, planning is everything, the communication between the different support functions, but poor safety is a measure of a lack of control on a project. And if you can demonstrate that your safety is in control, everything else tends to follow, because you're planning, you're coordinating, you're communicating, and they're big words in the safety space: communication, coordination. So these are critical spaces to be in. So I suppose, look, for us, it's about control, it's about consistency. It's a hell of a lot of hard work, a lot of great people on our teams, on our projects. They really believe in it. And for me, I came back to Mercury maybe 10, 11 years ago now. Main reason I came back is the kind of support I get from the executive, from the CEO, from all senior managers who've helped me over the last 10, 11 years. And you need people to buy in. And what's interesting for us is, and for me in my career inside and outside of Mercury, is that if the CEO or the COO or the MDs aren't bought into safety, the why of safety, it's hard to get the people on site to buy in then. So for me, I think it's about that understanding of the benefits of safety. And there's definitely cynics out there on projects and contractors and design teams and everyone. There's cynics. They're a very small cohort in the industry, because most people morally believe in safety and getting people home every day. But some people might, in a commercial sense, think just money first and safety second. But that's kind of a short-sighted view. And being honest about it, if your safety is right and you're a cynic and you don't believe in safety, guess what? Safety is right, everything else will follow, and you'll get your competitive edge there as well, because you have a planned project. You look back a number of years ago, contractors overlapping, not planned properly, people working over other people's heads, poorly sequenced installations, things like that. All of those items were huge safety hazards. A huge knock-on effect to the contractors as well. And I suppose when you have a project that's run like that, you end up with a hell of a lot of rework then as well. So one thing I've seen in the last 5, 6 years, even last 10, but certainly last 5 or 6 across the whole industry outside of Mercury as well, is better sequence projects, more understanding of overlapping contractors, better coordination, better communication, better planning, better execution. And while some of it's not rocket science, it kind of is for the speed that their projects are being built at. So for me, it's very much use technology, understand that safety is the foundation of everything good in your projects. And when people believe in that, then you get people to come with you, all the other support functions, all the contractors, everyone, and understand the why of it. The why is that morally we want to get people home safe. And if you don't believe in that, try to build a job without RAMs, SPAs, permits, coordination, communication, and see what kind of project you end up with. That's not going to be a pretty project.
No, it's not. That you make some great points, and I'm actually glad you made one specifically around planning, and because we hadn't touched on it yet, and you know, and you had said it earlier as well of, hey, if we can plan well, then and we follow the plan, things aren't going to happen. And you know, I know I was a kind of partisan studies or some data analysis that we looked at exactly that, and what we found was that in over 75% of our incidents, that the hazard that ultimately caused the incident wasn't identified in the work plan, you know, whether that was on the pre-task plan, SPA, on the permit, whatever it was. And so, you know, you make some great points there around planning, especially. So that just really struck a chord with me of, you know, really our jobs, especially from if we're a general contractor or an owner, but even from like subcontractor management as well. Really the bulk of what the job entails is planning. And the more you can focus on planning, generally, you know, the better your outcomes are going to be. So instead of, you know, running around putting out fires, you're able to kind of anticipate where they'll be, or where those fires are going to happen before they do.
And you made a great point there, Chris. The putting out fires, like, it's a big difference between being on a job where you're putting out fires and a job where there's no surprises and everything's going to plan. It's a far more enjoyable job for the teams on site, for the people running it, and it's less stressful as well, right? So there's huge add-on benefits here. A well-run project is an enjoyable project. There's good morale, there's good culture, everyone is on the same page. People are talking to each other, intervening, having safety conversations, all with good intentions, and you know, one follows the other. So yeah, there's huge benefits to planning properly.
And once you kind of get that, you know, if you start off on the right foot, you know, from the inception of a project, even right from the time that project's even conceptualized, you know, if you start there with that planning and identifying things and kind of, you know, saying, hey, this situation, we know this situation is going to arise. Here's what we're going to do. It just kind of like you start to sort of get that snowball rolling downhill, and it's almost, you know, orders of magnitude easier as well, even though they're highly complex projects or can be highly complex projects. If you kind of stay ahead of the curve and you continue to focus on planning and putting, you know, the plans in place that you mentioned earlier, things are ultimately easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think if everyone, I think something people don't talk about enough is people being honest with themselves as well. There's certainly nobody perfect, right? And you can always do better. You might have a hell of a lot of great projects, and one might be just a bit trickier than the rest, and you have to put some extra time into that project, that team, some extra coaching and mentoring and things like that. That's really important. But I think people bury their head in the sand and don't measure what's really happening out there. They're going to have big problems in the future. So if you're just ticking boxes on your audits, companies are burying or not reporting adverse occurrences, minor injuries, things like that, you're not going to win. Like, the thing to do is be incredibly honest with yourselves as a company, report everything, investigate everything, learn from everything, and then you're in a great place going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we're in construction, and, you know, we do plan and we put those plans in place and we follow those plans, but ultimately things come up. And, you know, if our plans kind of take into account those situations which may arise, or those, you know, kind of the what if type scenarios, it becomes much easier to react to those. But we still need to identify when those things occur and, you know, call those out. And like you said, be honest with ourselves. You know, and I've really seen it in the industry of moving away from, X number of hours without, this type of incident or that kind of stuff, right? A lot of times the absence of incidents doesn't necessarily equal the presence of safety. And I would even argue that it's, some ways the complete opposite of that. But we'll save that topic for another day.
Yeah, and I think for your jump as well, like we've really experienced multinational, different cultures, people, different backgrounds, experience, and there's a way of bringing them with you on the journey through buddy programs and not putting them on the more critical tasks until they get some experience. And there's many ways around that, but what you find is that through a little bit of reward and recognition, and for companies and individuals, that really helps to drive the safety message as well, and creates a healthy culture when it's done right. It's not just everyone is getting rewards and recognitions. It's for people who are making that extra effort or coaching or intervening and things like that. But I think you have to empower your team doing the work. You have to listen to the teams doing the work. You have to have forums to listen to the people doing the work so that you learn from them, because they're the ones actually doing the work. And it's not always the case that people in the office know everything, because they don't. So local challenges, local hazards, and maybe there's a better way or a safer way of doing certain tasks. And again, you can use technology, you can use trending from your audits, you can use feedback forums to get that kind of information. And it's very important to act on it then if you want to improve. So there's a bit of work in all this as well. People probably think it's all technology and it's very easy and you write a few documents and away you go. But there's work in this, but it's very productive, and it gives you a bit of satisfaction when you see consistency across multiple regions, projects, see companies improving on an ongoing basis. We run league tables on quality and safety across the group, and they've been a real success as well. They're posted on the projects and they're not done in any negative way. It just, it is what it is. And any company that needs some support and help, they get it. And we can see the scores consistently rising. So measuring for the right reasons, communicating for the right reasons, and improving are all key parts of what we try to do to keep improving anyway.
Great stuff there. So it kind of takes us to our last topic, or a topic on the agenda, if you will, around real world examples of using safety technology. And it doesn't specifically have to be safety technology. Maybe a better way to put it is technology, the use of technology on these projects to conquer, to deal with safety challenges. I know Mercury, you guys are doing some stuff. I've done some things in the past of using BIM models for excavation planning, right? Of knowing, hey, here's what we're going to encounter, here's exactly where we should encounter it. Doing as-builting to know when we're going to go, go back to that area and find that stuff, right? That's another thing that these large mission critical builders like to do, is to go and rework the stuff that they did just a few years ago. And so we put tools in place to prepare for that. Another one also around the use of BIM is doing essentially pre-construction safety reviews of, like you had mentioned earlier, Mick, around identifying where our challenges were going to be in the course of that project. Seeing if there's any design work that we could do, see if there was any opportunities for prefabrication, right? Get done things like panelized steel as well. So we're doing 90% of our steel erection on the ground. And I'm sure, Mick, you could probably provide some examples there as well of some stuff that you and Mercury have done, but those are just a couple that came to my mind.
Yeah, I think we've had a little journey with technology the last few years. A few years ago, we started doing, we were doing Excel audits 10, 11 years ago. And there was a guy, every few months, I'd give him several hundred Excel audits and he'd come up with trends for me. Whereas now we're in the real-time space, we're doing audits on BIM field, and then it's immediately into Power BI. So we have real-time trends, which we really enjoy, because we can act on the trends immediately, by sector, by region, by project, group wide, you know, so it's really good. We do about 40,000 EHS audits a year. It seems like a massive number, but it's about getting people down the field, having conversations with people, and we do a hell of a lot of work to make sure nobody's ticking boxes. It's not acceptable to us, so we want value out of these audits. We're not doing 40,000 and 5,000 of them aren't adding value. We've high expectations on the auditor. And what else? We kind of envisaged and rolled out EHS touchscreen kiosks about 18 months ago. They've been a huge success, just real-time engagement and consultation with trades in the field, and they basically give us real-time feedback on positives and negatives on the projects. We've been very happy to roll out HammerTech over the last while, and it's made a big difference to us on our accident investigations, quality, consistency, helping with the root cause, 5 whys, quality of the information, and we really enjoyed the HammerTech experience as well. Darren, my colleague, is the one who's put the most work into it in dealing with yourselves, and I suppose for me, the main feedback I give about HammerTech is that HammerTech listened to us and what we needed, and that's not always the case with some suppliers, and you just want less clicks, better quality, simplified information, simplified platforms, make it as easy as you can for the user. And I think, to be fair to HammerTech, you listened and gave us what we asked for, and we're delighted with that. So they're just some examples of technology. We've done virtual tours. We use technology for accident investigations. Kind of when you have an issue and you kind of, I can't think of the wording, you reenact it, if you like, reenact the investigation safely or the accident safely. And we use it for queries. We use it for non-standard HRA queries. Use technology for anything we can. We've used technology for quality. We've used technology for vendor support and people on the other side of the world, different side of an iPad, and just advising a team how to do work during COVID was a first. And because of travel, technology really helped us and helped to do a task really safely with great quality with a vendor in the States talking to our crew on a project here in Ireland. So technology is it's just made a massive difference, but it's the real-time side of technology now is what we have. Pumping out the trends, getting the information early, supporting our team, making our team's lives as easy as we can, giving them more time to spend down on site, more time speaking to people, more time coaching and mentoring. Because we've great people working on our projects from all over the world, and the more time we can spend talking, listening, chatting about the plans, chatting about what they can do, well then that's a real benefit. And if you can use technology to increase the time spent in the field by your own team, not just safety, by all your management team, then you're on a real winner. So that's just some feedback there, Chris.
No, I appreciate that. That's great points. Really, of kind of what I'm hearing there is, technology is great, but ensuring that it is helpful, and it's not just, a lot of times what I've seen is specifically around like safety audits, right? It's kind of doing a safety audit for audit's sake to say that we've done one, and that's really kind of missing the mark of the potential of that activity. The audit itself, or the paperwork that it ends up on, is just a byproduct of the activity versus, or that's the way it should be, versus what I've seen is people that are doing the audits and they're kind of doing the audit for audit's sake, and there's really nothing of value that comes out of that. So thanks for those points, Mick. We kind of have a few questions that we commonly hear around these topics. And then it looks like we got some in the chat as well. So we'll hit on these three first of, what are some key tactics for mission critical projects that main contractors can adopt on other projects to improve their safety records. I think we've really hit on them there as well. And to me, and Mick, feel free to add on as well. To me, it really boils down to the emphasis on planning, emphasizing, identifying high risk activities or identifying challenges that are going to come up or that are going to occur, and really just, planning them and then executing to the plan, versus kind of on some more commercial type projects that I've been around. It's really like some of those that have operated more in like the kind of putting out fires as they come up, right? And so really that emphasis on planning. If you're able to execute your plans and you plan well, then naturally you're going to have a great safety record and or great safety outcomes and great project outcomes. Mick, anything you want to add on there?
I think you said it best when you said start as you mean to go on, but there's a hell of a lot of how do you start as you mean to go on. It goes back to PQQs, pre-qualified people, setting up your project execution plan, having kick-off meetings with your subcontractors, meeting your client for their expectations, agreeing the standards, the requirements, then rolling out things like your visual standards and your safety management system. Simplify it, make it practical, make it achievable, and go from there. But there is an element of what will you accept, and I think as time has moved on, people are accepting less and less, which is fantastic. Less and less of what's not good. So I think if you people are smart. The people who work on projects are really, really smart people, and if you can explain and show them what you want, they'll work with you, and they'll work with you every time. But if there's ambiguity or grayness or something's not explained right, or you haven't taken the time to do training or communicate properly, you're not going to get to where you want to get to.
Great. Thanks, Mick. And moving to our next one here, as far as what metrics or KPIs have improved most significantly due to the adoption of safety technology in mission critical projects. Excuse me, I'm struggling with my words this morning. It's still a little early here in the States. I know for me personally, it's not so much of like improving metrics or improving KPIs, but it's actually creating the access to information to have things like new metrics or new KPIs that didn't exist in the past, right? We all know the difference between leading and lagging indicators and all of that. So we don't have to dive into that. But really, what I've seen is by having data points available, like knowing how long it takes to correct an issue once it's identified. Maybe this is towing the line a little bit between safety and quality. But if I can look at a project and it takes them 2 days to close out issues that are identified versus another project takes a half a day, like that gives me very real-time actionable information to know that second project is taking these things that are identified a little bit more seriously. So that's for me. It's not so much of, hey, we've improved this metric or we've improved this KPI. We've actually been able to adopt new ones because of the data that's available. Mick, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think technology has led to it's easier to interact with the people actually doing the work, and then for ourselves from an accountability point of view, that you can assign actions to people from audits, from findings, from conversations, and you can track those to closure. So again, there's no point having 40,000 audits and several 100,000 line items on those audits if nobody's actually closing the findings. So I think technology really helps to track and close and provide evidence and make the project safer just through tracking actions. So I think that's really important.
Love it. That's and then kind of our third one, and then we'll hit this question that we got in the chat. And Mick, I think that one's specifically for you. But so our third question here: what future developments in safety technology do you see as critical for the construction industry, and how is the industry preparing for these changes? I think, you know, the first thing that that comes to mind there, and it's probably going to surprise people. I don't say, I guess the first thing that comes to mind for me is artificial intelligence. Probably doesn't surprise anybody there, right? You know, I think we're seeing that used more and more in all lines of, you know, our life. But you know, we can think about the opportunities that exist there, especially around planning, right? Of or within an audit of, you know, I can think of if I'm planning work that day and I start saying, here's the things I'm going to do. And I have some AI software that is going through and looking at, you know, the hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of pre-task plans, SPAs, permits, whatever planning document we're talking about there. And it's starting to suggest to me, hey, here's what we've seen in the past, or, you know, here's what we need to make sure we're hitting on. Really like providing that assistance to those individuals out in the field, I think is going to be critical. And then I think we'll continue to see an increased focus, and this sort of falls into the same realm as AI, but on, you know, high risk activities, right? Of, you know, tools that we can put in place to help manage those high risk activities. I know here in the States that, you know, we've seen a huge reduction in our, you know, overall incident rate, kind of as an industry since health and safety regulations really started to be put in place in the 70s, but we've kind of hit a plateau in lowering the fatality rate. And so I see that as an increased emphasis. Is, you know, we've done a good job of eliminating a lot of the minor injuries, but you know, we're still kind of having some problems with those more major severe injuries, and those naturally come from high risk activities. Mick, do you have any thoughts on that one as far as where you see technology taking us over the next few years, 10 years, few decades?
I made some notes there on it. So on AI, we actually trialed AI several years ago on a project in Holland, and it was okay, but you had to feed in a lot of photographs and videos and stuff to it. I was at a conference with a colleague of mine, Paul Murphy, there earlier this year in Holland, and the AI is moving fairly quickly. So there's cameras up all over the project, and they can feed in, say, you know, if someone takes off their glasses, the speakers, and the speaker will say, put on your glasses, kind of thing, right? So this thing is moving very, very quickly. But I think for me, people are smart. They'll figure out a way around the AI and the cameras and things like that. So I think technology is fantastic. We're very much bought into AI, and we're on that journey, and we love it, and we're going to implement it. But it'll never be reducing the number of safety professionals we have in our projects, because we're dealing with people, we're not dealing with robots, and conversations are everything. So I think there's a balance, actually, Chris. Everyone's going to go on this safety technology. I think it's brilliant for preventing crush injuries and things like that. Obviously, there's stuff been around for a few years on machinery to prevent crush type injuries or impact injuries, cameras, sensors, things like that. So that's improving all the time. I think it's brilliant. But there's a balance, and we need to keep people at the core of the technology. And if it's practical, it'll be used, and if it's not, it won't. And I think it's really important that it's practical. That's probably my thoughts there, you know.
But the practicality point of it is huge. I know I've dealt with some kind of, whether not necessarily specifically safety technology, but you know, kind of trialed some cool and neat gadgets that at face value seem like they'd be great, and then, you know, you take them out in the field, and the guys in the field are actually like, this makes my work more difficult, less efficient, and it's really the benefits that you think would be there actually aren't.
I do think that technology is going to move really quickly in the PPE, work planning, sensor type space, and certainly in the kind of artificial intelligence intervention space as well. And it'll become very normal in only a very short time, couple of years, I'd say. I think that's a real benefit. We still need people talking to each other, We still need supervision doing their job. We still need to plan the task properly and not think that technology will solve everything. That's all. But we love technology. That's the way it's going, and it's going to be a great benefit. It's just to strike the balance and not rely fully on it, I think, is what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's an assistance, or it's an enabler, not a replacement.
Yes. Yeah.
It's kind of the way I think about
it. The same as people make mistakes, machinery, certified machinery can fail. Everything has its place, and they'll all mesh together into giving us safer workplaces. But I think technology and safety has been a huge benefit. It's going to continue to be a benefit, and I look forward to really good AI interventions on the projects. It's going to be exciting to watch it develop. But yeah, so there's just a really this thing is going to move pretty quickly, I think, globally on intervention technology, AI interventions.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Kind of to hit on the question from the chat here. You know, they reference, Mick, your experiences on the ground is really interesting. How have you managed the changes on the ground and how they impact health and safety, and the agreed upon methodologies for each task? So I really think that what this question is getting at, and whoever submitted it, if I'm missing the point here a little bit, please feel free to add some clarification. Really, I think what this question is getting at is, these projects or construction projects in general are dynamic. They're ever changing. Like, how does Mercury really kind of handle those changes and the dynamic nature of the projects, right? As we're talking about, hey, we have RAMs that we developed. Now we do our SPA and now something changes and maybe all that stuff got approved. How are you guys handling those kind of the dynamic changes that naturally occur on a project and through your planning processes? Maybe it's replanning, or I'm not sure the right terminology to use there.
I think it's a brilliant question, and it's the challenge for everyone. So I think I did a kind of an exercise myself a number of years ago, 2016. I pulled together all our trends and industry alerts, industry learnings, and I went through them in great detail, and I come up with three to four high risk unwanted conditions. So the biggest one in the incidents and the findings and the audit findings was deviations from the plan. The second one was non-standard tasks, not planned, not getting extra attention. And the deviations one ties into the question, by the way, but I'll come back around to it. The third one then was it was people trying to help who weren't part of the task. So someone walking by and people are pushing a piece of kit through a door, and one guy gets crushed because he wasn't part of the plan, so he didn't know the hazards. And then we added a fourth one in the last 12, 18 months where there's a change of management. So there are four high risk unwanted conditions, which we've actually got a poster on called the 4 red flags. So if any of them are out there, they're a red flag. And for me, we've rolled out the 4 red flags this year in a big way. And a big item for us is empowering people. So for the question, which is a brilliant question, the answer is you educate people on what to do when there's a change. You have to pause. And the word pause came from the Making Safety Personal program, being honest, but Mercury have adopted it over the last number of years. And I know a lot of our management companies and other companies have used it as well. It's a big word, but it's all about language. And from the first day I was on the project, we were told in induction, everyone's empowered to stop the job. Guess what? Nobody stopped the job. I've seen senior managers walk past serious hazards and not stop the job. In my career outside of Mercury, I saw that in the mid to late 2000s. I was with other companies and people just wouldn't intervene because it's a big deal to stop a job. So we changed the language to what's in that Making Safety Personal to pause the task. And the success we've had with that is pretty incredible. So we'd have apprentices now who'll pause a task. So there's a change, a dynamic change. And it's basically pause. Pause can be 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days, but someone's calling a pause. Something has changed. So we do a hell of a lot of work on, if you can't stick to the plan, don't deviate. As I said earlier, 0 deviations equals 0 accidents. So the plan is, if there's a change and a dynamic change needed, and you can't stick to the plan, you pause, you assess the plan, you agree the new plan to suit the new hazards you've identified dynamically, and you proceed safely with everyone understanding the new hazards, the new plan to mitigate those hazards, and you get everyone home safe at the end of the day. That sounds very easy. It's not. It took a lot of work. You have to embed the 4 red flags. You have to share them on an ongoing basis, poster campaigns, toolbox talks, summer campaigns, you name it. Just make sure people understand. If you see any of these 4 red flags, you pause. You pause, you pause, you pause. Everyone's important to pause. You have a bit of reward and recognition around the pause as well. And then you kind of, you get people thinking, why would I deviate from the plan? So we do supervisor training, we do behavioral training, and we really use the behavioral training to embed in people that you're working to live. You've been asked not to take chances with your personal safety. So why would you take a chance when you've been asked not to? And that's why there's a huge body of work in it. But I think, to finish, simplify the language to everyone. So if you can't stick to the plan, you pause. Don't deviate from the plan. Use the word stick to the plan. That's a key item. Stick to the plan. If you can't, you pause. What else? We've things like find it, fix it. Simplify, 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 simplify. The simplicity is the greatest sophistication. It's very easy to have very wordy SOPs and permits and documents, but if they're not translatable to the people doing the work, or understandable or practical, you're not going to win. So the dynamic changes are a big challenge, and it's a brilliant question, but it's about using the behavioral training to embed pause, don't deviate, don't take chances, work to live, get home to your family. It's just a job, right? No one wants you to take chances with your personal safety. Please don't. There's a hell of a lot of good people who've been injured in the industry over the years by just trying to get the job done. They're not doing anything maliciously. They're trying to help, trying to impress their foreman, trying to get the job done. These are good people with good intentions, but they're people who worked outside the plan. And I just keep going back to that. If you don't, 0 deviations from the plan equals 0 accidents. And once you can embed that, and if you can't stick to the plan, you pause and you redo the plan, and you start when you have a safe plan again. That's just massive, right? And that kind of answers that question, Chris. But it's critical, and it's a great question.
Yeah, I think that you make some great points, or made a great point there, right? Of sticking to the plan, identifying those deviations. I think, history shows us that anytime that those conditions change, or that plan isn't able to be executed as it was identified, it is key to pausing. And I love that term there, instead of stopping work, because stopping work, it implies that everything's coming to a screeching halt, and we're not doing anything, versus a pause. It's like, it's implying that, a pause, we're going to press play again. We're going to keep going, versus stop. It's like, okay, well, now we stopped, and now we have to redo everything. And so I love that. Actually, I'm going to take that one, and start talking about it in terms of that way. So I think that brings us to the end of our time here. And
thank you, gentlemen, for a really insightful overview on managing safety in mission critical environments. Well done to you both.
Thanks, everyone.